I neglected to mention that one of my past lives was as an assistant secretary acting in the Pentagon under Ronald Reagan. And I'll never forget a Defense Intelligence Agency briefer coming into my office at the time and saying, apropos something I knew very little about, in that closet, you could have a biological warfare production facility. And nobody in this office or walking down the hall, for heaven's sakes, let alone outside the building, would have a clue that you did. I mention it because one of the technologies that I'm particularly riveted by at the moment and very concerned about, in part because I do a radio show called Secure Freedom Radio that's podcast everywhere. And I had as an interviewee today, Dr. Lawrence Sellin, who, among other things, served in the Army for 29 years, including at Fort Detrick, talking about what we have learned about biological warfare capabilities on a far larger scale than that little office closet out of communist China as a result of its attack against us with a biological warfare weapon called COVID-19 or CCP virus. We can debate whether it was deliberate or not. That's, I think, increasingly likely. But whether it was or whether it wasn't, what we know is it served as a proof of concept for a biological attack that they have built their program to perform. In fact, it's been reported from a private briefing to party cadre back in the early 2000s that the then defense minister of China, a fellow by the name of Chi Hao-tian, told them that Deng Xiaoping in the early 1990s had started this program, illegally, by the way. They have a treaty obligation not to have a biological weapons program. He started it for the purpose of depopulating the United States so it could be colonized by China. And what we've learned from the COVID experience and looking more intensively at published open source material out of China is they have been designing, in part we now know with research funding from taxpayers of the United States, as well as with Chinese People's Liberation Army scientists working to this day inside the United States, how to tailor biological agents to attack specific ethnicities and other demographics. So this is a technology that if we don't get our hands around right quick in terms of how we do better at defending against it, how we better understand what's being done by adversaries, and it's not just China, unfortunately, I think it's all over the world. But the Chinese happen to be pursuing it particularly aggressively, and I think this requires our urgent attention.